Hi there, and welcome once again to Friday Focus, where we do not focus on what is seen, but on what is unseen. We're continuing our look in the Psalms. Today we're going to take a look at Psalm 11, and I call it God is in Control. Did you know that of this date, there are 39 countries experiencing war or conflict, with a total estimated casualty count of 160,000. Not only that, but all around the globe, people are struggling with all manner of issues. Perhaps you're one of them. It may not be war, but maybe it's a health problem, finances, or loneliness, or relationship difficulties. You may be facing employment issues or some other matter that I haven't identified. However, the common denominator in everything is the struggle. Struggles seem to be part of life, don't they? So where's the hope? Is there relief, any consolation, any place of solace for those in the grip of adversity? Once again, I turn to the Psalms. Why? Because all that's been written, the Psalms, have provided comfort, reassurance, and inspiration for struggling believers, even amid their trials. In our search for hope, let's take a little deeper dive into Psalm 11. And pay close attention to David's opening words. He says in the first part of verse 1, I trust in the Lord for protection. That's his go-to. His first reaction. What's yours? If you want deliverance from the struggle or strength to deal with this problem, your spiritual DNA should scream, I trust in the Lord for protection. Why does David open with that statement? We're invited to look in on his struggle by reading the rest of verses 1 through 3. Look closely and see if you notice anything in particular. This is what it says. Fly like a bird to the mountains for safety. The wicked are stringing their bows and fitting their arrows on the bowstrings. They shoot from the shadows at those whose hearts are right. The foundations of law and order have collapsed. What can the righteous do? Psalm 11, the latter half of verse 1 through verse 3. Now, as you listen to the news, does it seem like law and order have collapsed? When the anchor reports stories of shootings, thefts, assaults, breaking and enterings, do you feel safe? I can understand some people's reactions. Multitudes not only have to endure dark times and events, but they yearn hopelessly for those things that have provided stability for generations past. It appears that the proverbial rug has been pulled out from under us. But as we look at Psalm 11, there is a critical difference. It's easy to see how an individual might experience anxiety, if not for one critical thing. Remember, I asked if you noticed anything different between the verse 1a and 1b through 3. A careful examination of those verses reveals something that's not clear at a casual glance. You see, the verses 1b through 3 are the words of David's enemies. They paint this horrible picture, but they're not David's words. They're his enemies' words, and these things that David are being told, they're basically using scare tactics on him. Apparently, some were advising David that everything had gone to, well, you know where, in a handbasket. The only thing David can do is to run like a scared dog with its tail between its legs. If I were to summarize those 3 verses in 21st century English, I'd probably have to say, face it, David, The righteous are down and out, and you can't do diddly squat about it. Is the world giving you a message like that? Does it cause you to want to throw in the towel? Do you feel like running for the hills? It's easy to feel overwhelmed when we don't investigate who is saying what. The enemy, our enemy, he would like nothing more than to see God's people on the run, because we haven't taken the time to evaluate the message and where it comes from. The critical difference is God's words differ 180 degrees from what the enemy is saying. That being the case, let's unpack verses 4 through 7. It says, "But the Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord still rules from heaven. He watches everyone closely, examining every person on the earth. The Lord examines both the righteous and the wicked. He hates those who love violence. He will rain down blazing coals and burning sulfur on the wicked, punishing them with scorching winds. For the righteous Lord loves justice. The virtuous will see his face." What a difference between 1b through 3 and verses 4 through 7. As we back away and we take a wide-angle view of this particular psalm, we see three things that are meaningful and helpful to believers. The first one is David's focus. Right out of the chute, we notice that David's trust is not in his enemy's message, but in the Lord. That's not something that happened when their message came to light. Long before the events in this psalm surfaced, David had already put his trust in the Lord. Ever since he was an insignificant shepherd, he had made the Lord his refuge, his strong tower, his fortress. So, let me ask, have you made that kind of commitment? It's a bulwark against those events of seismic proportions that interrupt our lives. Whatever comes, we're ready with, "I trust in the Lord for protection. He is our God. He is our strong tower. He is our fortress." The second thing that's meaningful to believers is that trials come and trials go. David understood that trials are a part of life. They're a part of the refining process. Isaiah has something interesting to say about the refining that God does. In Isaiah chapter 48, verse 10, he says, "I have refined you, but not as silver is refined. Rather, I have refined you in the furnace of suffering." Wow. Maybe you didn't expect that. If you say, "Lord, have your way," he will indeed have his way. And part of that way is to make you and me holy, even as he is holy. Well, the third thing that's meaningful to believers is that God is a righteous judge. Reading verses 5 through 7, we're allowed an inside look into the heart of David. He is convinced that the Lord keeps great records, that God will examine both the righteous and the wicked, and such examination will be both just and fair. It's a psalm for all of us right now, in a world groaning under the weight of sin's consequences. God, the eternal judge, is on his throne, and he is in control. If I were to leave anything with you, I'd leave this very familiar verse. It's a Proverbs verse, and you've probably read it countless times, but I encourage you to take it, own it, let it make a difference in your life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. This is Dr. Vic Holifrin in his grace. If you have any comments or questions, you can address them to me at vicsfridayfocus@gmail.com. That's VixFridayFocus@gmail.com. God bless you. Have a tremendous week.